inside furniture outside on the front porch.
Right.
So anybody that has that when that ordinance is enacted, there's no grandfathering in.
Right.
You gotta comply with the current ordinance. So it depends a little bit how you want to attack it. The current zoning ordinance, I don't know when that business started versus when this zoning ordinance provision that he referenced, the 500-21, the performance standards for sound, was adopted. The other option is where sound noise would be found would potentially be a nuisance ordinance, which, again, like I said, there's a proposal to adopt a revised nuisance ordinance. The revised nuisance ordinance doesn't say anything about sounds creating a nuisance.
Right.
So there's the possibility of either creating your own separate noise ordinance to regulate maybe more things that are just considered a nuisance, or amend the nuisance ordinance further, make some changes to incorporate sounds.
So, generally speaking, would it be the right thing for council to do at this point to refer this to the planning and zoning commission, committee to come back to us with?
Yeah, they were the ones that prepared the nuisance ordinance at first. They made some changes based on comments that I had made on it previously. They seem to have approved all them. It was gonna come to the borough council to maybe advertise for an adoption at an upcoming meeting, but if you want to address the noise in the nuisance ordinance, I would recommend, yeah, you send it back to them now before we adopt it, to adjust it and maybe put in provisions, or they may even look at it and say, well, maybe we shouldn't put this in a nuisance ordinance, maybe we should have a separate noise ordinance, and let them make that recommendation.
Well, we did talk about that in planning, and the reason it isn't in the nuisance ordinance is because it's in zoning under that 500-21-G.
Mm-hmm.
That covers the noise.
That doesn't cover all noise. I mean, it should cover the noise in this
In this particular case, it does.
Yeah, but, because it's performance standards for commercial and industrial districts, but that doesn't cover some other potential noise.
Are there any other, excuse me, are there any other Prince Street residents that are complaining about the noise?
Well, what I understand, and Mike, you can certainly comment on this, have we been approached directly by any of them? Yeah, that's what I was getting to. He initiated that list by going to people door to door. We had not heard from anybody else on that street, as far as I can recall.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I think we should have a list of.
He's got a list.
I do have a list. It says for Article 500-21G on it, which apparently doesn't apply to this. So if I need to walk down the street again, I'm happy to do so.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Mike, just to clarify, because some of the conversation you and I had about this, the business is not operating overnight. It's not a 24/7 business operation. The issue is the trucks in the parking lot of the business that are being started between, I think you said 3:30, but I think we've talked about it's as early as 1 a.m. through 5 a.m. The 18-wheelers that are taking loads out or bringing stuff in are starting in their parking lot between 1 and 5 in the morning, and that's what the noise is.
It's backup alarms, isn't
And
it, mostly?
they're also loading their trucks then too, and it's just insanely loud.
And so is that part of business operations? Would that be considered part of business operations? Because my understanding when I spoke with Chuck after meeting with the Flemings was that when the previous code enforcement officer was over there, they were measuring the noise of the operation of the building when the building was in full operation.
With respect to the zoning ordinance, it doesn't specify a time. It says at no point or on or beyond the boundary of a residential or commercial district shall the sound pressure level of any operation exceed the maximum of that permitted, and then it gives various sound levels. So I don't see how there would be any difference as to, well, is it in full operation? If it's a sound coming from there and it says at no point, so it'd be any time of the day that it would apply to.
Thank you.
I did bring a copy of, you know, I've told you guys a thousand times, I work for Frederick County. I did bring a copy of their noise ordinance for this exact thing, where they have a difference between daytime hours and nighttime hours. If you guys would like to see that, I would
Yes.
definitely share that with you.
And I think something that is also a question with respect to the zoning ordinance, it has very specific parameters and measurements that I don't think the borough ever got the equipment to actually measure that, correct?
No, we didn't, as far as I know, we did not purchase any equipment to measure.
So, I mean, I don't know what all these numbers mean as far as how loud it's gonna be, so it's a question of, is it exceeding these?
Yeah.
It's hard to enforce this without a meter that shows you, that, you know, talks about the octave band and cycles per second, and along the residential district boundary, it can't be over so many microbars, and
Yeah, I'm not sure, you know, why you had this in here if you couldn't measure. If you're, you know,
yeah, because I'd be interested, I know, in what that ordinance says. I know that some of the ordinances that, I've seen, it has a much easier standard to argue that it's an issue than something very specific like this. Now, granted, if you got a reading that exceeded all this, it'd be a lot easier in court to prove it, rather than some of them are basically a standard that, you know, is an annoyance to a person with reasonable sensibilities. That's a very, you know, gray area, and it depends on what the judge you're making your case to. But it also allows the borough to do something rather than, well, we don't have the sound thing, so we can't enforce it because we can't say if it exceeds this.
right.
Well, I think it would be a good idea to do a separate noise ordinance, because you can, like, because I know we'll get calls about, like, construction, you know, what time can they start, because it's loud, and so you can address a lot more in a noise ordinance than in the zoning.
Correct.
So planning will meet on the 14th, November 14th, so I can put that on their agenda
Yeah,
to start looking at.
Yeah, we'd be happy to take another run at it.
Well, that would be a separate ordinance, that would be.
well,
that would
it could be a
constructing-
separate ordinance or nuisance. It probably would be best to just make it its own
Yeah.
separate.
A separate ordinance. Yeah.
Right, which would then require the borough to have the capability to measure, to be able to enforce anything.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, depending on what the standard is, if it's something that maybe it's not gonna be something you're gonna win at in court, but you could at least send a letter saying that, hey, there's this noise complaint, you know, we believe, whatever, and you could try to send them a letter and say, you know, you need to adjust your conduct because of the noise. Whereas this one, you can't really send a letter even to the business saying, hey, we think you're making too much noise,
Okay.
and then reference this ordinance when we have absolutely no backup to say what
Yeah.
the sound levels are.
Would it be possible for the borough to enforce a sound barrier? For them to install a sound barrier of some sort?
I don't know.
I mean, they can enforce a nuisance, or a noise ordinance that says you're making too much noise, which could in turn prompt them to come up with something to restrict the sound from going outside the
But
property.
again, would they be grandfathered in and none of this would even apply?
Not for a noise ordinance, no.
Okay.
The other thing to consider when you're talking about the noise ordinance is sometimes just with the hours, I don't think I've heard any complaints about stone cypress, but I can tell you when it's 4:05 on Friday morning.
Exactly.
You know.
Mine's
Yeah.
3 o'clock Monday morning.
Yeah, 3, 4
You
AM.
know, so when you speak to a noise ordinance, it's not just the pallet company or
Right.
the issues that are
That's-
doing it. You
that's-
have to consider the
exactly.
operations of everybody who's out and conducting business at those times.
It's gonna open a can of worms, because there's motorcycles, there's cars, there's all kinds of things.
I mean, I definitely think that can needs to be worked on, because this has been going on since December, I believe,
Yes.
when you first came here. We're almost a year into it. And I grew up on that street. It was Jack Tar when I was there. Art lived down there, you know. The noise level wasn't quite the same. Maybe this is the good old boy system here in Littlestown. 11 PM, Chuck, is that like a noise ordinance? Like, that's what I was always told. Is that a thing?
That's written under disorderly conduct.
Oh, maybe that's why I knew it.
Or inspired.
I can tell you, well, there's not gonna be, with the sound meter, it's very difficult to get that through a court.
That's what Chuck has told me all along. It's
I've
about
talked to the judge
courts.
here, it's just not, you just don't go out and take a reading. I mean, we did a lot of this in Harrisburg, and you gotta take ambient noise levels, you have to be there before the noise, you have to be there during the noise, and you have to be there, and so it's a long process. John said he went out and they had sound measuring devices. Now, I wasn't there, I can't speak with whether it was accurate or not, but they did do the sound level test. Now, when I'm here tonight, it may not have been at 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know. So, but I sent officers out, we talked to this man, and I sent officers out unbeknownst to him. And they were there 3 or 4 nights, and Jennifer, I provided you with the police reports. And we didn't see it. I mean, there wasn't a lot of noise there. Now, the one night, there was an issue. Travis Smith was the officer there. When they were pouring all the concrete for a while there with the
Oh, the storage area.
Storage area.
Storage units.
they were making
Across the
horrible
road.
noise back there. So I don't know if that maybe was causing some of the problems, but I've had different officers back there and they did not see any violations, other than what the man said he was doing. The trucks come in, start up, and they leave. They didn't see any loading of trucks. Now, I guess Jennifer, you met with him?
We had a phone conversation, and I did email you what he has indicated he has done in terms of trying to abate the noise between those hours. But we just had a phone conversation.
And I think maybe that's where I found out from you, that they did the ambient noise test with the sound meters. Did he say he did that with John?
No, you told me that.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, somebody told me that they did do that. Now, I wasn't there, I can't say for sure, but,
But with all due respect, Chuck, not so much to you, but to John, there's been some questionable things in the past anyhow, whether he's done something or not, or let people slide on something, so whether he did it or not, we can't prove that. We can't tell Mr. Fleming in honesty, that's been done. And,
no, that's why I just said that.
yeah, I know, and I'm not, it's not you, it's the other gentleman in question. It's my belief as the council, we need to do what's best for this town. And if this has been an ongoing problem for almost a year, we need to figure out how to rectify this situation, if we can. If we can't, then you have known that we've done everything that we can to make that happen. My recommendation is it goes to the nuisance, right, Jim? You guys deal with nuisance orders on the planning committee?
Yeah.
Let's have them take a look at that, and let's get a nuisance order together for, you said it's gonna be a big can of worms. There's trucks at Sheets, there's trucks at Royal Farms, all times of the night. I mean, there's things that need to be taken care of. And Todd, if I'm going too far outside here, let me know. But if we need the equipment, we need to figure out how to get the equipment to measure this sound. I mean, it's literally we have it sitting there, it's in the codes. It
Yeah,
needs to
well,
be
yeah,
measured.
it's in the zoning ordinance.
The zoning
The
ordinance.
noise ordinance, you could potentially craft somewhat differently,
Okay.
but, yeah, what's in the noise ordinance now, what you could enforce right today, I don't think you can.
Right.
Right,
But
and
you
that's-
can't force anything without the ability to measure,
Yeah.
Right.
so.
Give us some time, Mr. Fleming, we'll work on this.
I appreciate your willing to help.
Thanks for coming, Mike. All right.
So are we gonna direct anybody to,
Planning
Direct-
Commission,
Yeah,
Planning
Planning
Commission.
okay, that's what I wanna know.
Yep. All right. Tentative adoption resolution for the 2025 budget.
Do you want the update on the zoning officer?
Oh, yep, sorry.
It's okay.
Chuck, update zoning/code officer position.
We're having interviews tomorrow, they're all set up. As soon as they're done, we'll make the offer.
Okay. All right, now we'll move to potential action items. Tentative adoption resolution for the 2025 budget. If council's comfortable with the review of the budget, a motion can be made to approve the resolution tentatively adopting the 2025 budget.
I make that motion.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I just wanna say, this will not be ready tomorrow. It has to be advertised
Right,
first.
I was gonna read your next note to me here.
I get to see people coming in and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Budget notice for advertising, if the council has approved, which we just did the resolution.
is
It
it 2 weeks?
be made that direct the borough secretary, I need a motion to direct her to advertise the budget notice, so I need a motion for that.
I make that motion.
Second,
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Reports, Mayor.
So the first thing I want to do is recognize the borough. There were a couple hurricanes that went through recently, and the borough really stepped up. The citizens of the borough really stepped up. I know a couple truckloads of supplies went and all of that. I don't have all the names because I sort of followed it on Facebook, but, and I'm gonna give Harry McKean credit for this. He was the one who kind of reminded me after the last borough meeting, you know, this community gives a lot, and we really appreciate what each and every one of you do. So everyone who gave donations, whether it was diapers, whether it was a couple dollars, whether it was just, you know, sending best regards and all of that, you know, the South has been hit hard, and you know, whether or not we've got connections there, the community did step up, and thank you all. And if we were streaming this, I could do a broader thank you, but for anybody who is gonna share that information, this community really did do some things. And the other thing is with the laundromat, there was a lot of step up with the laundromat. So again, just another recognition of the spirit of Littlestown and what people do. I had posted somewhere that I'd reach out to Tide. They do kind of some emergency laundry stuff when there are issues with hurricanes and the rest of it. And we had our issue with the laundromat before the hurricanes hit in Florida. I'm not going to share Tide's response because I was a little disappointed in it, but we did do some outreach and try to get it done, and I think the citizens of Littlestown did their own outreach to try and resolve the things for our neighbors who were inconvenienced. So, you know, it's a real pleasure to sit here as the mayor and know the spirit of this community, or have been able to observe it as both a resident and the mayor. As far as other updates, I have hosted or been here for mayor's office hours 3 times since we last met. I've had one person show up for one, and I've had another person show up for another meeting. And on Saturday, I got a lot of work done that I was just doing on my own, because I bring things to entertain myself. But they will continue, those office hours for the mayor will continue. If it continues to be kind of slow, then I will probably just go to one Tuesday and one Saturday instead of 2 Tuesdays and a Saturday. There was a mayor at large last night to talk about community planning. So we will be doing a Halloween activity for all ages this Saturday at the library in the community room between 10 and 12. Wear costumes if you'd like. If you want to come, as I said, it's all ages. There are age-appropriate activities for the kids to do. There are games for them. If anybody wants to stop in and they just want to interact, I could use some help supervising some of those games. So some of the Velcro balls and all the rest of that the kids will be allowed to throw aren't thrown at other individuals, just saying. And if anybody knows of anybody who has individuals with sensory issues, I am more than happy to stay an extra hour from 12 to 1 for anyone with sensory issues who want to come in and do an activity but don't need the noise of the crowd. And that's about it for me this go around.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you gonna do a mayor's report, financial report?
We'll have to talk about that.
Okay.
I haven't discussed finances, so we'll have to talk about that.
Well, it's the parking tickets and all that are collected and the fines.
I'll
So-
stop by the office
Okay,
Thursday. I'll be by Thursday, Friday, and out of town tomorrow.
okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Here, you just.
Is that it?
That's it, unless you're gonna, are you gonna talk about Dunkin' Donuts?
About what?
Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Thanks for the reminder. So they had a grand opening, even though they've been open, but they apparently, they wait a while to do a ribbon cutting, and they did that Saturday. Jennifer and I and Jim showed up for that. And it was really nice. They had a lot of Dunkin' corporate people there. They had the franchisee there in addition to the manager and a lot of other people on his team that manage. He owns several of them, New Oxford, 2 in Hanover, I don't know where else, but nice event organized by Dunkin's corporate people, did a ribbon cutting. It was very nice that they presented $500 checks each to the fire company and to the police department. It was a beautiful day. They had a lot of activities for kids, things like that, and some giveaways and so forth. So it was nice. They're very happy here. They said they're doing well, and it was just a nice community event. And there was pretty good attendance there at it. It was a beautiful day, as I said. Nicely done on their part. You can tell that they have their act together as a major corporation, the way that they support their franchisees in that regard. So, all right, Borough Manager, Chief of Police.
Okay, we had our bulk trash day October 12th. We had very little participation. Hardly anybody showed up. We had 4 dumpsters there. We didn't fill one, so we need to talk about that next time we try that project again, because that didn't really get off the floor. We advertised it to death, so just didn't happen. Park project is progressing well. Walking trails are almost in. All the bases, they're starting to put the final coats and actually putting in the dirt around the edges and stuff, so that's looking pretty good. The playground equipment is currently in. It has been installed. We're waiting for the company to come in and finish the base and pour the flooring in that we're putting in there. Pickleball courts are all sealed and painted. Fencing is almost complete. The nets are up. I know they were finalizing the gates and stuff and everything on there because we took locks back to lock them up until we open it. We're doing a lot of sidewalks. That's all progressing well. Again, we're currently completing the electrical and camera plans for the park. And I don't know if I mentioned the fencing for the baseball backstops. That's all been installed. So a lot of that is coming together. One of the things I am going to do, I talked to them today, we don't currently and didn't plan to have any lighting around the pickleball courts or that upper end of that park area. Once we get the sidewalks in, and this is basically, I'm not asking that we do this now, but I'm gonna have them install conduits underneath the sidewalks in certain areas, that if we do later on down the road, the borough decides, maybe not us, somebody else, if they want to put lights up there, we'll have the conduits in place that they can just pull those cables in and put the lights in. It's not gonna cost a lot of money, we probably have the piping, we can do that, but I think it would be wise on our part to have it there than end up, maybe not us, but the next council or whoever is trying to dig up all the concrete, trying to get lines in, so. I'll meet with him tomorrow and tell him to go ahead and do that. And I think we probably have the material for them to do it. We continue working with C.S. Davison and the contractors on the stormwater management project going through there. All the shop drawings are done. They were provided to C.S. the contractors today. And the biggest thing is we're waiting for the material to come in. As soon as that comes in, that project will start. That's ready to go. Everything's been done. So we're just now waiting for material to arrive to be able to do that. I mentioned that board interviews for the codes enforcement position are scheduled for tomorrow. Once that's done, we already talked about that, but we'll get those letters out. Receive verbal notification. This is actually good news. If you looked in that one of the sewer budgets, one of the projects that we need to get done is the Meadowview Lift Station. That's our oldest lift station. It probably is not anywhere near the standards that it needs to be now. The pits are inside. I mean, it has to be, now your pumps all have to be explosion proof. You shouldn't have all that stuff in there. I received information, and I didn't get the letter, but they announced it today. They called me last week. We received, we put in for a CFA, a Commonwealth Finance grant, probably in 2023. Yeah. And we are awarded $200,000 in grant money towards that project, so that almost covers half of it. So that's $200,000 we don't have to come up with, and $200,000 it won't be coming out of the capital reserve funds. I will be meeting with Logan next week, and we'll start the design phase of this project, to start the preliminary design phase. Again, there's another crapshoot. I don't know how long, I mean, what are we looking for pumps? Did you do that? What, maybe 20 weeks out, 30 weeks out?
Yeah.
And the electrical components are even worse.
Yeah, I think that's probably reasonable. The longest one might still be a generator. Could be a year for that.
So, it's getting, the supply chain is horrible. So hopefully we can get the stuff and get that, because we're living on borrowed time with that one. Medicine take back is this Saturday from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the police station. The only thing we ask you not to bring is needles. We'll take everything else. Right now, we're being inundated with PA1 calls, which is our location of our utilities. Brightspeed is in town. They've got multiple subcontractors there that are doing the work. And we receive several hundred of them, so we're trying to keep up with it. And we've had several meetings with them and trying to get a better coordination on the work, because we just don't have the people to do that kind of amount of locating and have anything else get done. So we're going to continue to work on that. We have begun a crack sealing work on the borough roads. This will probably continue for the next several weeks. We've been out there starting already doing the crack sealing. Reminder, leaf pickup starts Monday, October 28th, and will continue for the next 6 weeks. And please, we're only taking leaves. Leaves, don't put trash or sticks, or because we can't get rid of that. So leaf only in the bags, and again, that starts have the medicine taken back. That's all I have really, unless you have any questions.